Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video I'm out here at Bushcraft Wonderland getting down to some good hard work, but to build my shelter I need to use some tools, and today I have a wonderful tool to share with you. Here in my hands I have a brand new product from the company Condor Tool and Knife. This here is a machete designed by Walter Matthews. This here is for 2021 a brand new offering. This is the Argyll Machete. So this here being a nice large chunk of 1075 steel, just beautifully done and ready for some good hard use. Now the full name of this is the Argyll Scottish Machete. Walter Matthews is somebody who we've talked with in the past. So if you're not familiar with Walter Matthews, I do encourage you to go back and take a look at a couple of my prior videos. But Walter's very interesting. He is a survival instructor and a survival expert, and he puts a lot of thought into his blade design, not just the design itself, but the aesthetics. And there are a number of things on here that speak very well to Walter. So my plan is to use this in detail today and to share it with all of you, get it to some good hard use out here in the field, and give you my overall impressions. With that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to Walter Matthews, who did provide this product for review. Now again, here, new for 2021, one of Condor Tool and Knife's newest offerings. This is the Argyll Scottish Machete. Very cool, just a neat design, a little bit different take on a machete. Now the first thing you'll notice is this does revolve around a Tonto design. So pretty neat. I mean, you don't see a lot of machetes in this exact style and shape, so to have something that's a little bit fresh and thinking a little bit outside the box is definitely great. Now the first thing I can tell you is this is a very well balanced knife. A large knife, a machete, whatever you want to call it, it is a little bit thicker than traditional machetes, which is nice because it's going to have that good durability. Being in 1075 high carbon steel, this is going to be a great option for hard use. You will need to be a little bit careful with potential for rust, but it should patina nicely. Now you'll notice on the spine here, this is roughly a 3/16, just a little bit shy of that. They call this 0.18, which is roughly 3/16 of an inch, which is definitely getting into a nice thickness for durability, a little bit of weight for forward weighted chopping, and also this is going to be great for doing some general splitting and I would say some firecraft tasks. Now one thing that's interesting is as you look at the grind, it is somewhat of a distal taper all the way to the tip. That's going to do a couple of things, but more than anything else, give it a nice thrusting, piercing action if you need it, but also sort of give it a better balance overall. It's going to lighten up just a bit on the tip, keep this a little more centrally weighted so that the mass is a little more balanced, and that's one thing I can tell you right away. This definitely has a nice balanced feel overall. This has a beautifully done walnut handle. I can tell you the fit and finish on this is pretty good. You know, these are certainly a production knife, and sometimes fit and finish can be a little bit off, but generally speaking here, pretty good. A couple of little raised spots on the tang, just a little bit, but overall, definitely a good serviceable handle. In walnut, just looking beautiful, and what you'll notice is as we look at this, there are a number of patterns throughout the entire blade here. So Walter Matthews, very interesting, has a family history to Scotland, and his Scottish heritage, well, in a lot of his designs, and actually almost all of them, he puts some level of traditional culture in the pattern, in the blade, and that's exactly what we have here with the Argyll Machete. So as you take a close-up look here, you will see this beautiful sort of Celtic style pattern, wonderfully done, laser etched down the entire length of the blade, and that also translates into the patterns on not only the handle but also the sheath. So putting nice detail and really a lot of thought into the final finish and presentation of Walter's designs. And so with that, I got a lot of work to do. Let's get this blade into some good hard field use. Pretty excited for this. So here, as we get ready and you take a look at the sheath, you will notice it has an open top design, has a couple of straps and some snaps to keep this in place. I'm just going to swing these out of the way. You'll notice that they are sort of on this little hinge here that allows you to swing them out of the way, which is nice. And then the belt loop, very simple. Now I am going to carry this on my weak side, but as I get this ready here for field use, you'll notice I'm going to leverage not only the machete, but another one of Walter's designs. So a quick little cameo appearance here for Walter's Selknam. Now this is a product that was sent to me as a gift. This is one of Walter's original prototypes of his Selknam, and you can see here he autographed it, which is really, really cool. And so one thing that's worth mentioning on here now, the Argyll, is this is actually also one of the early prototypes. So he sent me this again as a gift. So thank you, Walter. I greatly appreciate this. But there are a couple of very slight differences. First, you will see the color of the sheath. I believe for the production model they have gone with black, and then also the handle. The only difference on the knife, just the ball on the handle on the final production model is a little bit larger. They opted to go a little bit bigger to help aid in a little additional retention in your grip, so that as you're swinging and the purchase is good and sound and it's not going to slip. But other than that, this is the exact same as the production run. So my goal is to use this log as a ridge pole in my roof structure of my shelter. It's been laying on the ground for a long time and it's a little bit punky. So the last thing I want to do is use this, put it up, and find out it's completely rotten. So you'll see, very simple, just using the Argyll machete, just real quick as a little bit of a draw knife to kind of clear off some of the rotten stuff, sort of rap at it, poke at it with the tip, and look for spongy and punky spots, making sure the rot doesn't go too deep. And the good news is this log is good to go. It's going to be heavy, but I'll be able to get it up on my shelter and put it to some good use. So little things you can do with a knife other than really hard cutting tests. I mean, using it here just for a little investigation on this log, working out mighty nice. So just going to use the Argyll here to establish a V-notch in this tree. Now I have a small cluster of these all growing together, trying to be very selective in the trees that I use here, but where all these are growing in a clump, there's a whole bunch of them all in one spot. They're competing for space anyway. So using the Argyll here should do a pretty nice job. Let's see what kind of bite we get. And so you can see the Argyll having a nice bite. I mean, good, healthy chunks just flying off of that trunk, burying nice and deep, hitting nice and hard, but at the same time, this is light and nimble and balanced. So it really does strike the balance between something that's going to be easily maneuvered in your hands, but then at the same time capable of hitting reasonably hard. Now I can tell you that I can see why Walter wanted to put a slightly larger, and I'll call that a nub, on the pommel end. This did have a tendency to slip just a little bit. Keeping in mind this is a walnut handle, it doesn't have too much in the way of texturing, nor does it have really too many indexing points. So it is a little bit in that broomsticky kind of, I would say, just rough dimension and shape. So it does slide a little bit, and you definitely rely on the nub on the back of the pommel to lock it into place. Now, I wasn't really fearful that this was going to fly out of my hands, but I can say that on the production model, it's probably going to be a big difference having a slightly larger, balled out pommel on the back end of the handle there. And so the Argyll doing a wonderful job establishing my notch and allowing me to drop that tree literally exactly where I needed it. So good for the chopping tasks, but now what about the limbing? Well, a machete needs to be able to do some limbing. I mean, oftentimes you'll use it to clear brush, make it through densely forested areas, and at this point using it here now for some of these limbing tasks. Let's see how this goes. So cutting through vegetation should absolutely be a hallmark of a machete. I think this Argyll is going to do a mighty nice job. Light, balanced, accurate, feels great in the hand, sharp, capable, and just fun. So far, this Argyll is fantastic. I have to say I do greatly enjoy this. Feels wonderful in my hands and just looks great. I mean, nice and aggressive, feels good, perfect balance, and just doing a wonderful job so far on these tasks. So Walter and the people at Condor, so far, very nice. And so just taking a few minutes to use the Argyll to clean up some of the pokies that I'm afraid are going to damage my tarp, which is the bulk of my roof system. So at this point, I mean, the Argyll performing extremely well. Now, I have a whole bunch of other tests that I need to do with this. Unfortunately, my time's coming to a close here at Bushcraft Wonderland, and I'm still not quite ready to have a fire here just yet. It's not quite safe, I'm not really set up, and I don't want to draw that kind of attention at this point. So, with that said, let's get to some more field use using this Argyll, but I'm going to get back to the backyard fire pit and give this a good run for the money. As you can see here, pretty good amount of flex on the blade. I mean, definitely stressing it. It is thin enough that, yeah, it can definitely flex. But being 1070 high carbon steel, I do expect it's going to be able to take this with no problem. So I just got to get it back out of here. We'll keep moving on. Taking a look down the blade. Still perfectly straight, so this straightened out no problem. Looking at the edge, no edge deformation at all. 1070 is a good steel, has good properties in terms of overall edge retention, the overall sort of springiness of the steel, and with a proper heat treat shouldn't have too much problem, even though this had a fairly significant flex. So for the most part, you can see the Argyll doing a nice job with the splitting tasks. Now the first thing, this is definitely not going to be the best splitter because of the grind. What happens is, because this has a low secondary bevel, in essence you have a full blade of the same thickness for almost the entire width of the stock. I should say depth. So when you look at the overall depth of the blade here, it does change basically from close up towards the handle all the way to the tip. But what happens is you get that initial cracking action and then a lot of friction. Sometimes with a higher saber grind, it does do a little bit of a better job wedging, so this is not going to be the best at splitting, but overall you could see it did a fairly effective job. Now with super large and stubborn logs, it did struggle a little bit more, but for wood that was a little bit smaller, it had no problem and did the job just fine. Plenty of blade length, so you do get some leverage, and overall I have to say the Argyll performed pretty well. Now even in those stubborn logs, I did have a little bit of a hard time at times with this getting a little bit stuck. Overall that worked just fine and didn't have too much of a problem. Now unfortunately, It did cause a little bit of damage to one of the walnut scales here. Just chipped off a little bit of the corner. That's a little bit unfortunate. As you can see here, these are at a bit of an angle. So as I was driving down through the wood, it probably caught the edge of one of the pieces and kind of chipped that off a bit. That is one downfall to wood sometimes, so you do need to be a little bit careful. And I was probably a little bit tougher on this knife than it's really truly intended for. But overall, it definitely performed the task. Now, a lot of people will say it's hard to use a small blade for large blade tasks, but you can generally use a large blade for small blade tasks. Well, with the Argyll, because you end up with that second grind on that Tonto, you can definitely do some nice food prep with this. And as you look here, just a good, easy slicing action here. Whoop, coming at you. So these might need another minute, but they are darn close. And taking a look at it here, nice slicing action. No problem at all. So taking a look here, I need a couple more minutes on these, but other than that, the Argyll working very well here for some easy kitchen food prep tasks. Nice. Nice clean cuts and no problem to it. So now continuing to process down this wood, gonna get myself a tinder bottle ready. Here, just gonna get myself some nice healthy curls. Nice grip on the Argyll here, feels good. The handle's slightly slim, and again, talking to Walter, I think they did beef up the handle just a little bit for that production model. But here, getting a real nice bite bevel here. Nice and stout, nice grind. Good attack angle, and easy to find that edge. Fairly good balance overall on the Argyll, so doing a nice job balanced in my hand. Little forward weighted, so you do need to pay attention to your control, but not a big deal. That first piece was maple. Working now here on some oak. Both can be fairly stubborn, and the knife can behave a little bit different, so just getting a slightly different impression here. See if we can lighten up here. Get some slightly tighter curls. Nice and controlled slicing action. Feels really good. As you see, just lightening up a little bit on my curls. Trying to get them nice and dainty, capable of catching a spark with ease.